Happy Monday, everybody, and good evening to all of you beautiful souls and brilliant minds. Welcome to another riveting episode of the Know Your Pharmacist Livestream. I'm your host, Dr. Joaquin Acosta, CEO of Pharmtrue, and your trusted guide on this journey to elevate wellness, both mind and body. Tonight, we've got a show that's both captivating and enlightening. We are celebrating American Pharmacists Month, recognizing the heroes behind the counter who make healthcare accessible and compassionate. These are the experts who go beyond the prescription pad to connect with you and to collaborate with you in your well-being. Cornerstone of every neighborhood healthcare model, especially here in America. But wait, there's more. Ever wondered how pharmacies might actually look in the Metaverse? We will go ahead and imagine virtual aisles and give you guys a little bit of a demo walkthrough so you can stroll through and look how that sort of future might just shape up someday. Brainstorming the future tonight on our Tech Talk segment. So American Pharmacists Month, absolutely excited about that and excited to talk about some of that interesting stuff. What is the metaverse really going to look like in pharmacy, right? Communication, guys, cornerstone of effective healthcare. In our Enlightenment Hour, we will delve into the science of how patient-centered communication may actually be, enhanced in the metaverse, where you can actually create productive dialogue and true healthcare access, putting those bridges where they need to be bridged, potentially. Anyways, in our Herbal Wellness Corner, we're going to be crushing stigmas through education. We're going to be showing how, the metaverse can actually perhaps triple boost, is the way I would like to say, the crushing of cannabis in medicine and the stigmas around cannabis and the education gaps there that are not only in our healthcare population, but also, in our patient population. And even, right, we're swimming upstream right now as it's a federally illegal substance, but, that may not be forever. Anyways, guys, today we are launching the butt cancer case study. It's our first day that we actually rolled that out to our patients, and we're super, super excited to get that rolled out and get that going, get some data on full spectrum oil and cancer research. Very excited. Anyways, community spotlight, shining on the annual fall red enchilada fundraiser. We're going to be looking at, all the fundraisers that are going on right now, guys. But when it comes to our community spotlight, it's not just about food. It's about community, love, and togetherness. And gentlemen, listen up. Men's Health Minute is focusing on the mental health challenges that new dads face. It's time to break the silence and start the conversation. Heartfelt thank you to our incredible sponsors, Pharmtrue, High Horse, the Trichome Alliance, and Vado Speedway Park. Your support makes this journey possible, guys. So hopefully you're already settled in, got perhaps your favorite drink, beverage, snack, whatever it may be, and you're ready to sit back and dive into tonight's excellent and creative show. Let's jump in. American Pharmacist Month. Happy days, everybody. Celebrating. Go thank a pharmacist, guys, this month. There's going to be not only, important holidays this month that is American Pharmacist Month. You've also got 5 other important dates to remember. October 5th, National Pharmacy Student Day. Yesterday was the start of American Pharmacist Month. October 12th, Women's Pharmacist Day, and then October 17th, National Pharmacy Technician Day. Very, very cool. Got a lot of stuff going on this month. Talking about, again, what we really do want to recognize as the vital role for pharmacists. Guys, takeaways for October in American Pharmacist Month, acknowledging and celebrating the significant contributions of pharmacists and their teams to make healthcare and communities they serve, guys. Pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, pharmacy industry people, right? Whether it's institutional education or wherever else, you guys completely understand the vital roles that, pharmacy teams and technicians and everybody play when it comes to, the healthcare experience. However, right, it's our month. Should be celebrated. If you guys are watching your pharmacy team struggle right now, as pharmacy advocacy is a huge thing, especially in trending topics with the CVS walkout, over the last couple of weeks, and the pharmacy unionizing stuff, right? But Walgreens is going to have a walkout here, I think, end of next week planned already. So, pharmacists are already having to advocate for themselves as a profession, right? And this month truly does serve as a dedicated time to acknowledge the critical role that pharmacists play in healthcare, to raise awareness about challenges in the profession. So when you look about challenges in the profession, guys, I think we already kind of understand, but again, unless you're married to a pharmacist or married to a pharmacy technician or dating one, or, maybe gave birth to one or something like that, you're not necessarily going to really be in tune with what's going on unless you work for the industry, right? So challenges pharmacists currently face, such as workload, scope of practice, reimbursement, and technological advances. Guys, there's a lot there. So these are current things according to Pharmacy Times, who, right, is already currently recapping American Pharmacists Month currently, and what, the scope of the industry is already happening. So you look at workload, right? Some of the things that, are being completely advocated for with the CVS and Walgreens walkouts and everything that's going on there, because again, balancing things that pharmacists didn't do 10 years ago, aka giving vaccines, which is awesome. I love it. I've never seen anything different, but I can see it in an industry where it's, you do a lot, you don't change a lot, but you add in a whole lot more. Holy crap, like, when does that actually stop, right? For those who are still in there, completely understand, and maybe some areas are worse than others, and our, Las Cruces location is, they're okay, they're doing all right, but still got to thank them, and these teams are tremendously working, against the grain, swimming upstream sometimes to, meet the, expectations and metrics from corporate and above, correct, but to actually just get out medication in their services, right? So if you may be waiting for something, there may be, three other important life-saving critical things that pharmacies and teams are doing at all times to, support whatever patient that they're working on, or collaborative practice with a healthcare provider, right? So again, there may be, 30 total pharmacies in the area or something. I don't even know what the exact demographic is right now, but, maybe there's 30 or less locations entirely in the city of Las Cruces that are able to give vaccines, right? When you're dividing that by 100,000 people, right, you're looking at a good amount of vaccines per pharmacy when you really split that up. Granted, maybe they focus on either or, one or another. However, it's important just to realize that, the pharmacies truly do take on the workload of vaccinating the entire community every single year. During during COVID, pharmacies ended up taking, the burden, not the burden, but the responsibility, and in some cases a burden of, doing the COVID vaccinations, doing the COVID boosters, so on and so forth, which are still out, which has still already come out, right? The new COVID boosters, which, yes, are recommended for everybody 6 months and above right now. So again, those have just recently came out. They are important, and that's what pharmacists are out there making sure that they deploy on top of the cold and flu season, which is yet again the busiest season in probably healthcare as a whole, because yes, cold and flu, you're getting doctor's appointments going up, you're getting doctor's inquiries going up, you're getting, more visits to the pharmacy, whether you're chronically ill, become extra sick, going to the hospitals, so on and so forth, or more frequent trips to the pharmacy, that it's just a increased demand there because of what's going on. And it's important to recognize that, yes, your pharmacy teams are going to shoulder a lot of that. Yes, your healthcare system as a whole absolutely is, but American Pharmacists Month, as someone who's been in the trenches, in the belly of the beast plenty of times, and will be, back there soon, wink, wink, telling you guys that that's just truly, the face of what it is. And it's all good, in terms of, right, making it, compartmentalizing it in the infrastructure of how to look at it in your mind, whether that may be, I look at it from obviously the business side and so from that lens and that scope, I see, hey, well, there is a lot of opportunity for change. There is a lot of opportunity to still, create good things where things are really, really messed up. There's means for solutions, and solutions are what make things happen. So, in an industry that has managed to try to take care of the medications, right, for everybody ever in the United States of America, as well as vaccinations, there's a lot going on there, and a lot of different things that have changed over time. Again, 100 years ago, that wasn't, it wasn't what it is today. And you look at, middlemen who have come up in the middle of the insurance billing that, aren't necessarily creating a smooth, transparent way of paying out pharmacies for their services, right? And things that have been created in the various pharma lobbying formations to help vertically and horizontally integrated companies, wink, wink, such as Walgreens and CVS, to thrive and succeed and to continue to grow. Yes, for sure, independent pharmacies do face a little bit of an uphill battle there. However, the need is even more apparent because of the style of what you're going to get here in the future. And we're going to talk about that here in the next segment, talking about, what the pharmacy is actually theoretically going to look like in the metaverse, right? The pharmacy is going to look like something. It's going to be something someday, and it's going to have to be regulated. That day is farther away than we think. However, it's an interesting concept there. And so American Pharmacists Month, shout out to all of our pharmacists who are out there working hard, doing the best that they can. But going to move on here. So, for those of us who truly believe in, direct patient care, person to person, right? Maybe times are changing where that's not the case anymore with where the big business is going. You look at Big Box and CVS, who has invested heavily, into creating their metaverse, putting the trademark on the whole thing, and looking to create that care. Hospitals are already starting to theoretically be, proposed and created in the metaverse and what that might be. And again, you look at a huge, giant, I guess, just literal virtual world where you can interact inside of a hospital and you can log in maybe as a doctor or whatever that may be, or as a patient, and, go start chipping away. You can probably do a lot of assessment and communication virtually when you do think about that, which is interesting. However, right, the adoption is not going to be what we think it is, and it's all good either way. But what is it going to look like? It's always interesting to consider what this future truly is going to look like. And I mean, when you expect it, right, physical reality and virtual reality, you can go and shop through, right, a store by walking through it in the virtual world. And we're going to give you guys some experiences, virtual experiences here in this show today, just so you guys can kind of get an interesting concept of a view here that, things are going to start changing in the next couple of years and so on and so forth as we get closer into, wherever the healthcare digital world will be taking us. So, by perhaps even 2030, people could be, truly using those VR headsets to, fulfill orders for prescription drugs, paying, virtual money, NFTs to hand it out to your virtual person who goes in and interacts with the virtual pharmacy. And then from there, a drone shows up to your house with medication. So be very different to think about the type and style of training that you may need as a pharmacist to, be a good meta pharmacist, right? You never even think about the fact that need might be a thing someday. It's very interesting. Meta pharmacists maybe living in a virtual world, such as what I'm doing every day, going live for, 30 minutes to an hour, wanting to be available, wanting to make sure that I give good, edifiable information that's out, that's usable, that's manageable, that's valuable for people, trying to keep people updated. I've worked in the pharmacy industry for a very long time, and I know, doing 20 billion jillion calls a day, that I understand what the questions that come at the times of the season, everything that's happening, taking care of a lot of people, and I value that to the highest of what I do, and I want to make sure I keep that accessible and available for everybody. It's the basis of the show. I wish I could spend time updating every single person on everything every day. So this show creates a lot more value for me to go out there and keep people updated on real-time things versus trying to sift through some of that all single day long. And hopefully we can continue to build on that. So either way, right, when you do have, it's different when you have a one-on-one consultation with a patient virtually. These aren't things that you're going to be doing when you work for Walmart or Walgreens right now. All you get is that regular, phone, right? You're getting your phone that you pick up, boom, boom, boom. That's what you're going to get. Otherwise, somebody can come in and to get a good long consultation, usually in these places, chances are you're not even going to get the time to do that. So again, somebody that's a pharmacist that's working in perhaps like your third-party side, the insurance side, maybe you work for a pharmacy benefit manager or something, and you're going through virtual claims, having to contact patients about rejections, having to fax out to prescribers, all these things, approve and deny medications. That's interesting, because you could be inside of a theoretical world, right, where you can perhaps contact and create that situation of efficiency between you, your patient, and whatnot there, especially for those who may be a little bit more tech savvy now. Patients, it's going to take a really long time to get to that point of adoption when you really think about it, right? Because again, what is a meta pharmacy really going to be able to be fully implemented, guys? It's going to be a few years, but it might be faster than we think, especially when we look at the advancement of tech and things already as it is. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a virtual pharmacy drugstore tour. This isn't very interesting to me. Hope it is to you. So pretty simple, yeah? I mean, as far as what that is, well, check this out. I'm going to put this video up because I thought this was interesting as well.
For the next 7 days.
I spent 7 days working in the Metaverse. And so I want to watch this one because I thought it was interesting that this is kind of showing a true interaction of what is it like, doing this sort of the business and day to day. So let's look.
I'm going to work solely from here as I explore if you can really and truly work in VR. On day one, I needed to get things set up and ideally get to work quickly without spending too much time. Now, Horizon Workrooms made this pretty easy, and actually with the ability to have 3 screens in addition to the lovely log fire and beautiful scenery around me, I have to say that my first experience of working in VR is blowing me away. I don't think the screen recording will do justice to the quality of the screen in front of me, but it is like mind-blowing how clear it is. It even gives you a virtual keyboard on my desk that looks exactly like the one I'm using and shows my fingers over the keys as I type. Now, the only issue I have is if I get up too close to something. First, it feels like you're going cross-eyed, and secondly, it just starts looking really out of focus. Now, Monday is when I plan and script a ton of my video content on this channel, so I spend most of the day using Notion and Google Docs to plan out the ideas that I have. And here is where I ran into my first major problem, the battery life. Or rather, it's not actually an issue because we just sat still at a desk all day, so we can just take a USB charger and plug in our headset. Now, the only thing I will say is using the official Oculus Quest Link cable is very, very heavy, and it actually weighs the headset down and makes it uncomfortable. These small, very thin, very light Apple USB-C cables actually make a really good job. The other issue I've had is my complete inability to drink whilst wearing this headset, both because the Quest Pro doesn't allow you to easily take a sip, and because it is just nearly impossible to figure out where your glass is on your desk. The best workaround for this I found is to ensure my drink is always in the top left corner of the desk area, which I can see in VR. Day one, great success. Day 2 started out much the same, but I realised that being enclosed in this VR world was beginning to be a bit lonely. So I discovered an app called Immersed, and oh my god, it is like having a VR version of WeWork, but way cooler. Welcome to my new VR office in Immersed. Check out all of my screens. I explored some public areas and ended up hanging out with a group of people who were just all socially working. The features on this Quest Pro, where it can track your eyes, your mouth and your eyebrows to give you this realistic facial impressions while speaking, really shows its grit. I think Zuckerberg might actually be onto something. We have Michaela on the right here, who's just busy online shopping, and a bunch of guys, some developers, and even one of the developers of the Immersed app itself, all just sat in this virtual cafe, like chatting away, and it was the nearest I've had to working in a busy social office since I sold my IT business back in 2020.
Keep getting this weird visual bug that periodically just one of my screens will go into like TV static mode, and it stays that way until I hide my screens and then show them again.
The guys said they were heading into a conference on Web 3.0, and since I was now part of the crew, I just decided to tag along and listen. We mostly just sat there listening whilst we continued to work, but it was nice to just sit there in the presence of other people for a change, and to be able to chat over various talking points in the conference. And this is where it dawned on me that this is just the perfect use case for VR. If the last 2 years have taught us anything, it's that whilst some of us might be introverts and enjoy time, spent alone, we also still crave human interaction. But this kind of interaction in the metaverse feels safe and protected, unlike the daunting and, for some people, overwhelming experience of real-world co-working environments. Working in VR might just be the best way to fulfill both the desire to interact and the desire for a safe, isolated, and focused environment that we might get at home. Work done for the day, and before I went to bed, I looked in the mirror and gave myself a right fright. Wearing a VR headset definitely isn't kind to your face, particularly for your forehead, and it isn't good for my hair at all. I hope that's not a permanent red mark on my head. Day 3, and the mark is gone, but only temporarily, as we don our headset to go start another day. Today is going to be new for me, since I actually need to go and do things in the real world, outside of VR, and make a few YouTube videos. I wonder how this might go. I hope people like me. I think about asking people to subscribe to my YouTube channel, but I decide not to. I don't want it to sound desperate. Anyway, video shot, and back into VR I go for a few scheduled meetings. Chris joins me to brainstorm some ideas before he momentarily passes out at his desk. I tried resuscitating him, but I'm really not holding out much hope. I think it's a case of a dead battery. Right. Oh!
I can't find the charge port on there.
But he lives. Back to fight another day as we finish off our brainstorming session and high-five each other to celebrate. My next call is with Chris and our newly made friends from the US, Christian and Matthew from CraylerMade, who appear in this floating video type screen. And one thing is that the spatial audio in VR is really impressive. Like, these small details make a really difference when working in VR, like standing up to peek over my screen to see others, or hiding my screen so I can talk. I can see when others have their screens in front of them and when they're typing or they're looking at the board. Day 4 was a pretty standard work day, mostly just consisting of emails and a few more calls. On the subject of emails, I've been asked a few times in my other videos what this screen is that says like good morning or good afternoon, and it is an awesome email client I've discovered called Spark. Even though I use Gmail, it is better. Like, it keeps newsletters and notifications out of the way in separate folders and puts the emails I actually want to respond to at the very top. And the biggest feature that I've come to love are keyboard shortcuts. Now, it may sound really simple, but E marks emails as done, U makes them unread, and S snoozes them. You can also either set aside or pin important emails, though I choose to leave emails in my inbox until I've actually dealt with them. But using Spark, checking my email takes literally less than half the time it used to. So check out the link down below. There's a totally free version which still gives you the awesome keyboard shortcuts, and there are paid for plans with more features. The fact is, we're actually on day 4 now, and I'm yet to suffer any form of eye strain or even fatigue. Remember when you were a kid and your parents told you, like, son, if you sit that close to the TV, it'll give you square eyes. And here we are, just a few years later, with the screens literally millimeters away from my eyes. I tried listening to some music whilst working. I had to decide between using headphones or the built-in speakers. It still sounds better coming straight out of my proper desk speakers. And also, the audio controls on the headset are just pretty fiddly, to be honest. And also, because I can still hear my other human life outside of the headset. I can still hear the doorbell to take deliveries or speak to my better half, although both the delivery guy and my wife find it a bit weird me wearing the headset. Now, this headset has also started feeling quite heavy after wearing it for a while, but other than a very red forehead and a bit of a messy haircut, I'm not noticing any real impact in terms of the function and use of this for a whole 6 to 8 hours a day. After a few meetings, I stayed in this empty meeting room for a bit longer just to glance at the board whilst working. I'm finding this really useful, by the way. With Chris able to join back in as quickly as someone physically walking into a meeting room as if it was a real office, it'd actually be really cool if there was a knock on the door feature. I guess kind of like the Zoom waiting room where you can let people in perhaps. Day 5 was a quiet day, so I decided to just go and work in a public room, not so I can talk to someone, but just to be in company. That's
the main character, and it's about this this Mormon cop in, honestly, the actual the city where I grew up. It's right next door, the city I grew up to.
I ended up sitting in the corner of the cafe I've grown quite fond of and overheard a couple of people discussing the whole Russian conflict thing. It was good to get some work done and actually have some conversation in background. When you just have that in an office and you hear something you have an opinion on and you can just shout over your random thoughts? Yes, just like that. Day 6, and I decided to revisit my friends in the cafe as some of them were online again, so we just hung out and did some working together whilst chatting about the differences of soccer versus football between England and the US. I think I also upset somebody when I told them I didn't really care for either of them, as I'm not really into my sport. I'm yet to lose a VR friend yet, but I feel like this might be getting pretty close, so I don't push it any further and just leave it there. Now, I realise I actually spend quite a bit of time in my actual meeting room, and since I have a couple of meetings today, I decided to make it a little bit more homely. I throw a picture of me and Chris in LA on the wall, add my logo, though it doesn't really fit that well. I guess I'll have to speak to the architects about that one. And for finishing touches, I add a picture of my kids behind me. Now it is really starting to feel more homely. Day 7, and the realisation that I'm almost at the end of this experience, it's got me feeling a little bit nostalgic. Now I visit my friends one last time to Immersed and chat to them about their experience of working in VR. Some of them basically use this every single day, just like I've been, where this is the VR equivalent of a WeWork office, like hopping in and out of public spaces whilst working. I think I've actually become part of this community here in the VR world, a space where I can come to work and be productive, but I'm not alone anymore. I finish out my day by playing some Beat Saber, absolute classic. And with one of my favourite games of all time that I've ever come across on the Quest so far, and it's free, even better, Echo VR, which is pretty damn close to making me feel like I'm in Ender's Game. So after 7 days in VR, am I really ready to say that this experience was a runaway success? For the most part, actually, yes. There are genuinely only a small handful of downsides that I can think of when it comes to VR. Yes, the headset is quite heavy and leaves an impression on your forehead when you wear it for a while. Yes, the battery life does need improvement, and it's not going to be as clear as the high definition, 4K, 5K screens in terms of pixel peeping. I think of all the things that have come out of this experiment, the only awkward thing is that pass-through mode, where you can kind of view both your virtual desk at the same time as the world around you. It just can't really handle the changes in brightness at all. So, for example, when sitting here in my room and I turn to face the window, which looks down my driveway, in the VR headset, I just see this bright white square. I couldn't tell you, for example, if there's a courier outside dropping something off, and sometimes I can't even hear the doorbell go because I'm busy chatting with someone in VR with the speakers close to my ears. Now what does happen is the delivery driver pulls up and sees this plonker walking around, waving my hands in the air whilst I draw on the whiteboard, looking like a right idiot. But on the other hand, I made friends. I had fun. I actually had productive meetings using a real whiteboard in person, and the biggest of all surprises to me, I actually felt part of something. And as someone who works from home by myself 99% of the time, it was nice to have some friends again. I'm going to miss a lot of this world after I leave it, for good. But at least for now, I'm going to do one last conversation with my friends. Until day 8, because I'm not going anywhere. You're my new VR friends. I wouldn't leave you.
So interesting. Right now, check this out. So basically I'm going to share with you guys a Metaverse hospital and what that's theoretically supposed to look like, right? I mean, think about if you're a doctor, going to work at a Metaverse hospital. This is where it gets very interesting, right? I mean, all of a sudden you're plugging in, that's what you've got around you. As you guys just saw that little demo there, you're in doctor mode. And you can walk through the hospital, and if you're a patient, you could be in patient mode. Look, hello, doctor, thanks for treating my wife so quickly. You can literally help You can engage with family of patients, walk through the hospital just like a normal thing. Think about that. Visit patients, be able to do these assessments. There are going to be, again, based off of whatever data is coming through and things like that, but that's only going to continue to get better. And for, streamlining what it is that a doctor could actually do, especially if you're able to make their work even that much more automated and streamlined with, something like this, to where, hey, why would you need a medical scribe if you could be following this around all day, tracking the interactions, getting everybody in the right spots? That's very, very interesting. So that's where I think, for our Enlightenment Hour, talking about, patient-centered care and augmented reality and all this, I'm like, whoa, that's going to be very cool. The pharmacy, to some degree, sure, it's cool. I know people do like to go to those. Some people, when the pharmacy's right, you like to go to the pharmacy, right? You like to still go and be a person in places. But where you can really see there is that augmented reality, that virtual reality can almost give you that same experience to a very, very close degree as is already. And maybe that experience just for the right people could be important and valuable, especially when you're looking at a hospital that may not be fully staffed. Well, what if you had remote, nurses, doctors, right, staff, whatever it would be, that could go through the hospital, work through their jobs remotely, so on and so forth. All of a sudden you expand your workforce times a billion, and can increase a lot of different things for healthcare access. And I think that's a very important thing. And that's, what I wanted to talk about here for the next segment is, VR, and where I believe this is something that we already are looking at education as a whole. Absolutely, I understand, but I think it does tie in a lot of ends for education. In terms of the one-on-one personalized basis, I don't know if it's at that point yet, but perhaps can create a lot more, interactive, accountable situations for learning, especially for the masses. Well, something that I just thought was interesting is that, really where you can perhaps look at the interventions for crushing something like a stigma that's been over 100 years, aka cannabis, with things like, virtual reality or augmented reality. Well, what are we going to be, granted, things right now that we have, continuing education platforms for pharmacists, technicians, doctors, things like that. How many of us really know that you can go and get those done in a weekend or whatever else at a convention like New Mexico Pharmacists Association, whatever that may be, right? Very cool. And you can go out into what you consider live credit hours, and get those and get whatever you need out there, and knock out a bunch at a time. Well, I think it's very interesting where you can look at doing a workshop or a conference like the New Mexico Pharmacists Association virtually like that, so you can have things that prevent people from going to these kinds of conferences where you may be able to get lump sums of CEs and network and get all the updates for the law, might actually be having to stay back and actually run your business, which most people have to do a lot of times, unless you've actually made it out to a certain degree. You have to be in there on it 24/7. As I completely understand, I come from that point. Business is your baby. You have to baby it until it grows. Every single day that ends in Y when you own a business is a work day. There's no vacations. This is not how that works, right? And so again, you cannot, perhaps always have a situation where you can get your continuing education credits. If you're a doctor, you're running around a hospital 24/7, or a nurse, things like that. You're going to be very selective and picky about who you're going to be using for CEs. And the quality of those CEs may get slightly diminished because you may be a little bit more in a hurry to knock them out. So what I'm getting at is things like, cannabis, where providers already don't have a whole lot of knowledge and awareness over cannabis, still probably leaning on more towards have a stigma than don't. You're looking at things like clinical trials, right? Where, you can be doing all kinds of different, evaluations and communication, so on and so forth, perhaps virtually and efficiently that way to save people time, money, gas, right? All that coordination there, especially, maybe you're one person with one caregiver or one person with no caregiver. It's hard to get around, hard to do those things. Transportation could be a problem. You could replace those things with VR to some degree, unless it's a complete medical emergency. And just that extra amount of support right there might put you in a better situation of preventing it, right? So you look at that as a whole. In our Herbal Wellness Corner today, I think it's very exciting to see the promising, application for virtual reality in education. I think our students that are learning through school and everything, those who do an entire life of education on it haven't even lived their lives yet. Nobody's even really started a curriculum, virtually from, start to finish. So we don't even really know. We don't even have a data set on that yet. So we wouldn't even know how to optimize the human experience that way, obviously. But again, in the right situations, you could really look at virtual reality and things like virtual classrooms and virtual get-togethers for, different healthcare providers all in one room for healthcare access, to knock out a lot of those different kinds of things. I think that's awesome. Like, that's super awesome. Even if you were having, for instance, a regular, not a regular, but, a business meeting, even if it's B2B or whatever that might be, you can conglomerate, collaborate a little bit easier, a little bit more intimately, even if it's digitally. That's fair enough to say. So anyways, guys, moving on to the community spotlight, going to highlight the save the date, guys, for the Tortugas Pueblo enchilada dinner. Wanted to shout that one out for everybody here. I'm going to put this up on the page. I will share it in the chat notes here as well. Let's see. Cool. So October 15th, Casa de Comida, Enchilada Dinner, 778 East Guadalupe Street, Las Cruces, Tortugas, New Mexico. Hamburgers, dine-in, takeout, sweet sodas, water, plates, red chili, cheese enchiladas made to order, lettuce, tomato, $10 a plate, supporting Los Indigenos de Nuestra Senora Guadalupe. Whole enchilada weekend and everything like that, guys. This enchilada fundraiser is in line with all of that, so hope everybody can see that, get the information they need on the screen. If my chat was working, I would put it in the chat right now, but I can connect you to that later. Stop sharing that, and I'll jump off. Last thing that we're going for in the evening, guys, Men's Health Minute. Going on a study here talking about becoming a new dads, something that affects my life too. And it was interesting, just saw a survey here for and saw other information that healthcare status often can change in newly expecting fathers, from mental health to physical health overall. And, it's very interesting looking at the science of that as I, see the situation for my own self. But I think it's very cool to, note that obviously things like COVID syndrome, that is a primal instinct of the human body, right? As far as the man to, have some sort of psychological, physiological response to, right, being a father and things like that. And when you look at that, it is interesting to look at not understanding and being uncertain about something and not feeling like you have access to even knowing maybe your emotions or how you're supposed to feel or anything like that. And so, wanted to advocate for those young men that, maybe undertaken that or may have, silently dealt with whatever. I think it's important to think that, understanding new fatherhood to some degree for everybody has its own, matters of to be handled and to be acknowledged, right? You look at this survey, said 23% of dads say they felt extremely isolated. 20% reported losing a number of close friends. 56% of respondents said they experienced at least one new negative health behavior in the year after becoming a dad, including everything from exercising less to gaining weight to drinking more alcohol. And again, looking at the research and accessing, engaging with resources, looking at this one here, a 2016 study that contributed to that, is that women are better than men at accessing and engaging with resources that might help them. So, looking at, right, new mothers may be more adept to access resources about what new mothers might expect. And same thing, contrary to fathers, right? Our fathers, knowing how to access that, accessing it, and executing, so on and so forth, or even understanding how to grip with the emotions on how to move forward. Everybody, you can look at some other studies that come out that look at how to determine whether, what other influencing factors may determine or not your likelihood of being a good father or not, or whatever, some of those things that may be. But it's very interesting to look at the overall impact of that. Everybody's going to handle it differently. Everybody's going to, have to go through it on their own personal basis, right? And that's all good. But when you look at the number of support and the things that you have, and the things that new fathers, do need, which is, again, learning to be a part of all of that. Active enrollment does become a choice, but again, what may limit fathers to things like active enrollment may just be lack of knowledge, lack of resources, not understanding how to deal with their emotions, and identify, what that is, how to deal with them. It seems easy to say, but again, worth noting for all those that have been through it and don't know, or excuse me, not been through it and are yet to know, and those who have been through it, obviously, that get a little bit more experience hands-on and go through that to whatever degree, worth pointing out, worth noting as well. So that ties it up for tonight, guys. October 2nd. Happy Monday, everybody. We'll see. Hope everybody watched football this weekend. I'm a Cowboys fan, low-key, so I ain't going to say anything.